Hey, everybody. When we think about financial abuse of elders, especially those with cognitive impairment, we typically think of people outside of the family that are perpetrating a scam. And the most painful can perhaps be when it happens from within the family. So adult children, siblings, neighbors, friends, etc., that take advantage of someone. Somehow, and sometimes they're able to justify in their mind that they're due to something. And we'll talk about this in this third and I think final video on protecting our loved ones from financial scams and disasters. My name is Matthew Estrad. I'm a gerontologist in St. Tammany Parish, and I've been partnering with the Council on Aging in St. Tammany for over 11 years as their caregiver support group facilitator, and about half that time bringing you conversations like this that we call Caregiver Coffee Conversations. This is, like I said, the third installment. We've talked about in the first, and we talked about outside threats, so strangers that come to scam our loved ones. In the second one, we talked about what we'll call quote unquote misuse of funds, when someone who has a cognitive impairment is spending their own money that like they have a right that as they have a right to, but they may not have made these same decisions if they did not have a cognitive impairment. So we want to protect them from that. And then here we are with the third one when it can be family members and friends that happen to perpetrate. So before we get into that, just a quick reminder of our caregiver support group that we have just about every Tuesday of the year, except for holidays, Mardi Gras, etc. We encourage you to check us out. We meet on Tuesday evenings from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Sometimes we're in person at the Slidell or the Covington Senior Activity Center, and the other Tuesdays when we're not in person, we are on the platform Zoom that many of y'all are familiar with. So that's the second and the fourth Tuesday we're virtual. The first and the third Tuesday of the month we're in person. Highly encourage you, if you're interested, to check out coastseniors.org, then find the caregiver information on there. And once you are on that site, you can download the flyer that we publish every 2 months that has our dates and locations. And I also encourage you, while you have that flyer, to scan the QR code or go to the link so you can sign up and receive free emails as a reminder every Tuesday morning. We send out a reminder as to where we are, and if we're virtual that later that evening, it will be the Zoom link. So, and when the next flyer comes out, you'll get that when that one is refreshed. So highly encourage you to do that. There's no reservation that's necessary. It's completely free and sponsored by the Council on Aging. And there's no commitment. If you check it out and find it's not for you, then there is no obligation to do that. So encourage you to do that however you do it, whether it's in person or virtual. So, all right, let's jump into this very sensitive topic. We're going to be using the same sources that I have in the last two videos. And just if you haven't seen those videos yet, this video, as well as the others, will draw upon the Consumer Financial Protective Bureau guidance on elder exploitation, the National Adult Protective Services Association definitions of undue influence, and the Alzheimer's Association 2025 Dementia Care Practice Recommendations regarding vulnerability in financial decision-making. Additional insights come from the National Center on Elder Abuse and research by Lichtenberg and colleagues on impaired financial judgment in dementia. And we will have these sources in the description of the video in case you want to check out those websites. So I won't have the websites, but you'll be able to Google these organization names and titles and be able to find them pretty quickly. All right, so before we get started with this, I don't want to paint myself as an expert in financial abuse, especially those of elders. I don't want to paint myself as a legal authority. I am not a lawyer. So remember, this is not financial advice. It's not legal advice. This also assumes that when you are sort of looking into any potential financial abuse, improprieties, that you're doing it in goodwill, that you do it because you honestly suspect something, and you approach it with prudence and charity in wanting to do the right thing, which does take courage. So I wish you well in kind of going down this path, because it can be very scary. Most of us don't want to be confrontational. We probably understand that, looking into these things can put a strain on relationships. So just kind of keep all that in mind. All right. So why does financial abuse by family members happen? And it does happen more often than we'd like to say, or think, I should say. Dementia reduces judgment, of course, and increases trust in familiar people. Family members may sometimes feel entitled, like they deserve, because they are the one helping, especially when you have one person or a couple of people bearing the weight, and there are other people who are not helping. It can be easy for someone to justify in their mind that I deserve this or I deserve that, even little by little. Some relatives, they exploit guilt, fear, and confusion of those who are vulnerable, and longtime friends may take advantage of loyalty. People with dementia, they often want to help or be generous. So this is, really like a perfect storm where someone may feel like they deserve it, or may not have, may feel like they're okay taking advantage of someone, and you have someone who wants to be generous. So it's kind of like a perfect storm of things. Let's talk about undue influence. So this is an actual term that is used in defining financial, or looking into financial exploitation. It's really excessive persuasion that overpowers a person's free will. I'll say that again so you don't have to skip back. Undue influence is excessive persuasion that overpowers a person's free will. So what are some of the behavioral signs? When a relative suddenly becomes the gatekeeper. When a loved one repeats phrases that sound coached by that person. When someone discourages private conversations, and even when someone pressures people to, in this case, the older adult, into making quick decisions. Some of the emotional signs that you can look for is that a loved one seems fearful or overly dependent, sudden loyalty to one person in particular, and anxiety when that person is not present. And as far as the financial signs, you can see, or you may see, new loans or gifts to that person, large withdrawals, changes to the will, or to wills, or and especially to beneficiaries, new joint banking accounts, and unexplained purchases. Now, I'm not going to give any details, but my family believes that we've seen undue influence before, and it is, it's very difficult. It is hard to prove. It is, I'll just leave it there. It is hard to prove, but it does. What I saw did follow some of these warning signs that you'll see. So red flags of financial abuse by family and friends. Let's talk about access and control. So someone takes over the checkbook, which in and of itself is not bad, because many times there will be an adult child or sibling that is needed to take over the checkbook. So it's not just that, but maybe someone isolates that person from others. Maybe that person insists on handling all the bills and taking over the checkbook in a way where they don't want anyone else to see it. They don't want to be checked up on, and they may act in a way or say like, "Hey, why you don't trust me?" So I would say if there's anybody that, I would say that in a family, it's great to have a point person. But it's even better to have a point person or persons, where the person who is in charge of the checkbook, either it's two people, or if it is one person that's going to be writing the checks on a joint account, that others have the ability, and that person is okay with anybody with other family members seeing the checkbook and expenses at any time. Not so much a formal audit, but just an open door policy or an open book policy and full transparency of that. Just from the very beginning, just establish that as something normal before something suspicious even happens. All right, so another red flag, money flow changes. So there's missing cash. There might be new credit cards that you notice, ATM withdrawals that person cannot explain, the person who is in charge of, so to speak, the checkbook. They can't explain certain charges. And loans, we've mentioned that before, but loans that never get repaid. And really what happens, if there's going to be a loan, if the loved one wants to lend money to someone, have some paperwork, have something, expectations, understandings, and just see that it is open to everybody else to see. And how is it paid back if or when that loved one passes away? Is it just going to be forgiven, or is there a way to repaying the estate? Look for relationship changes, sudden closeness to a distant relative, a new best friend that appears daily, or someone that discourages visits or calls. So again, with a gatekeeping and isolating of the person. There could be lifestyle changes. Loved one lacks the basics. So even though they have money and now someone is coordinating or managing their money, they're not showing their normal hygiene. They don't have the food that they normally have or that they should have. Bills go unpaid, and utilities are even threatened with shutdown. So again, you have somebody who's in charge of the checkbook, but then you have things you see that things are not being paid for or things are not being provided for that person. So it can often hide behind this helpfulness. I'm going to help you with the finances, yet it does not really turn into help at all. So how do you respond respectfully and prudently? Start with curiosity rather than accusation. So you can use phrases. So you're going to make this into your own words, but you can kind of understand the sentiment behind these suggested quotes. Help me understand what's going on. Can we look at this together? Let's make sure that everything is safe. And if you're approaching the person, like the older adult who might be being taken advantage of, we want to avoid things like, I think that you're being taken advantage of, and turn that into, let's double check this to keep things safe. And again, there's many words and phrases we can use, but you can see how we're trying to remain non-judgmental. We're trying to gather information in a non-threatening way. You can reestablish oversight. You can review statements together. And again, that lends itself to the transparency that I mentioned, that when someone is assigned to take over the checkbook or be responsible over the finances, just have that open book policy, a transparency of y'all can see the books whenever you want. We can explain everything and back everything up. We have receipts. We know where cash went if cash is taken out. You can set up alerts. You can share that ability for others to receive alerts as well. You can move accounts to safer structures depending on what you work out with with the bank and others. And you can reduce access without confrontation. It's possible that you might want to involve a neutral third party. So that can be a financial advisor if there is one, or if one can be hired or acquired. You can have a social worker involved, a faith leader, or another trusted relative. The point being that other people are involved, and there's just a free sharing of information for those where it's appropriate. Document as much as possible, dates, use withdrawals, keep receipts, write down conversations, note and even write down changes in behavior. So the goal is protection, it's sharing information, it's transparency, it's not conflict. We're not trying to get somebody. We're trying to gather information and hoping that something does get clear. We're hoping to clear up anything that might be a misunderstanding. So how do you respond if someone gets defensive? So let's say that the person who is coordinating or managing the checkbook and the finances now, you're starting to dig and ask for information, and you're trying to be as neutral and just curious as possible. It's normal and can be expected that the person would be defensive, especially when you have finances. You've got pride, and you've got different family roles. Like, this is my role. Stay out of my role, and you take care of yours. So defensiveness can be normal. So some tips are to stay calm and non-reactive, lower your voice, slow down your pace, keep your body language open, and when they get defensive, don't match their intensity. So that could mean they raise their voice, but you're not going to raise your voice. You're going to stay steady as possible. Use softening phrases. Again, these are just examples, and you're going to choose your own language. I'm not accusing anyone. I'm just trying to understand. And this is about keeping mom safe. It's not about blaming you or anyone else. We are all on the same team, mom's team. Let's all look at this together. And I know this is uncomfortable. Thank you for talking with me, sort of like preemptively. So, and then I would even encourage you, before you have this conversation, that maybe it doesn't have to be just you. Maybe there are other siblings that can be there, that might make things more intense, or it might actually make things better. You'll just have to use that. You'll just have to think about that. Another idea is before this conversation, you practice with a friend and get some feedback, and you start you're using these phrases, so it's a lot more natural when you do actually talk with them. Shift from accusation to collaboration. So instead of saying, "Why did you take the money?" you can say something like, let's just make sure that this is set up safely so that we know where all the money is going. Like, I think we can all agree we want mom's money to be safe. So going forward, let's just have some transparency, et cetera, et cetera. Instead of accusing someone of you are controlling dad's finances, you can say something like, let's share the responsibility so you and others do not feel overwhelmed. You deserve to have assistance with this. You're doing a lot. It's important to validate their feelings when they're defensive. I can see this is upsetting you. So you're really just kind of naming the emotion. I know that you've been helping a lot. I can see that when I'm asking you, the questions I'm asking you are frustrating. I do trust you, but I just want to get some information. I know this is hard for everybody. And then once you've done that, you've validated the emotions and the feelings, kind of get back to the mission, back to why you're talking. So this is refocusing. This is, okay, let's make sure that we're protecting mom's money and that we're being transparent. Let's make sure that we're honoring dad's wishes, and let's make sure that nothing slips through the cracks, because with financing, there's just a lot to consider, a lot of different angles. So let's do this together. So this defensiveness is a sign of fear typically. It's not necessarily meaning that they're guilty. So respond to the fear and help them feel more comfortable. And just you're doing this out of goodwill. And so just kind of go down this difficult path and see what happens. All right. So let's say that you find something. You could get adult protective services involved for ongoing exploitation, for coercion or threats, for isolation combined with the financial control, that's APS. The bank, you can approach the bank and let them know. If you're not on the joint account, they're most certainly not going to share information, but you could go to them and share your concerns and see what they can do about it. They probably have dealt with this before. Like I've said in the previous two videos, these elder fraud departments that are at banks and credit unions, you're not the first person to come speak with them about that. So they could have some, I'm sure they'll have some wisdom and some good questions and kind of give you some ideas on how to proceed. I would hope so. So you can look at kind of take the lead from them. Law enforcement, if indeed something is going on, you have evidence, you can go to law enforcement, legal counsel, and this is not in an adversarial way. This is, talking to a elder law attorney. This is mediation. This could be protective agreements. Arrangements. So there's lots of things, so it can be a long, difficult role, but remember, you're just beginning by gathering information in goodwill, and you're waiting to see kind of where it leads. So it may not progress to these stages that we talked about, like having an attorney, having law enforcement, APS, etc. But it is worth looking into. So how do you preserve family relationships while protecting safety? Focus on the care recipient, on mom, on dad, on grandma, on grandpa, whoever it is. This is at the end of the day, this is about protecting them, protecting their assets, hopefully protecting the family. This is protecting wishes that they've hopefully expressed. You want to avoid public confrontations, so keep things private as much as possible. Keep a calm tone. We don't want to accuse others. We just want to ask questions and be curious until we have information that needs to be investigated. You can offer alternatives like shared caregiving responsibility, so having at least 2 people managing the checkbook. And if that is not possible, hopefully that's possible. If that's not, then just having this open book policy I mentioned before. So have budgeting, introduce budgeting to it, and joint oversight. So remember to always validate emotions. So I know this is hard. I appreciate that you've stepped up to help with the finances. You know this stuff better than I can, and I certainly would rather, I'm comfortable doing the health stuff, and I could never do the finance stuff. So I appreciate you, lending your talents to this. And I just want to be here for you and just have some transparency, etc. So all in the spirit of helping the person who needs help, and that's mom or dad or grandma or grandpa, and just offering to be there and offering their contribution. Recognizing their contributions. So, all right, y'all, this is kind of a heavy topic. It's a difficult conversation. If you ever have to really get into this, even the curiosity phase, it can be really stressful. But if you, I mentioned the caregiver support group at the very beginning, you can come to our group and we can talk about stuff like this. We maintain confidentiality within the group. We ask everybody to not ever share things outside of the conversations, and you could even practice some of these conversations, or we can, just kind of hash out things if you are, comfortable sharing that with us. Because it does come up from time to time, and we're happy to coach or offer advice when asked in the particular group. So, all right, y'all. Thank y'all for watching this. If you think that someone else could benefit from this, maybe they have maybe they've expressed some concern to you, and you think that some of these tips might help, please share this with them. And if we missed any tips, if you, from your experience or from your research, if you have any ideas that we left off of this video, please go ahead, put those in the comments section, and we'll be grateful for that and hope that others will see your comment at the bottom and kind of incorporate that into what we talked about here. So thank you for being here. Thanks for supporting the Council on Aging at St. Tammany, and I look forward to you joining us at our support group and then watching as many of these videos that you find helpful. Take care.